Welcome back to the deep dive.
It's great to be back.
Today we're going to be wrapping up
Yeah.
our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already tackled some heavy hitters.
We have.
Like virtue, wisdom, and friendship.
Oh, that's right.
And
The
we're
big ones.
yeah, the big ones.
Yep.
But now
We're hitting to the fun stuff.
we're getting to what some might consider the fun stuff.
Yes.
Pleasure.
Exactly.
Don't worry, this is still Aristotle.
Oh, yeah.
So we won't be diving into pure hedonism.
It's not an endorsement of just,
Right.
Running wild.
No, we'll be exploring book C, B, L, E, and X
Mm.
to see how he ties together pleasure,
Okay.
politics, and the ultimate goal of living a good life.
That connection is really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
It's interesting how Aristotle approaches pleasure.
Yeah.
He doesn't dismiss it as unimportant.
No.
Instead, he wants us to understand the nuances
Yeah.
and be discerning about the kinds of pleasures we pursue.
Right. In Book 7, Aristotle talks about different types of pleasure, good, bad, and neutral,
Right.
for those listening.
Yeah.
What exactly makes a pleasure good,
Yeah, that's a great question.
in Aristotle's view?
So it all boils down to the source of the pleasure.
Okay.
Imagine a delicious, home-cooked meal
Okay.
full of fresh ingredients and bursting with flavor.
Okay, I'm with
That's the kind of pleasure. Aristotle considers good
Yeah.
the kind that springs from virtuous actions.
you. Okay.
It's not about fleeting sensory indulgence,
Right.
like scarfing down a bag of chips.
Got you.
It's about the deep satisfaction that comes from acting in alignment with your best self.
So it's like the joy you feel after helping someone in need,
Yes.
or the satisfaction of finally mastering a
Absolutely.
challenging skill.
Exactly.
Those are pleasures rooted in generosity and perseverance.
Precisely.
Okay.
Aristotle believed those feelings are more than just fleeting good vibes.
Yeah.
They signal that you're living in accordance with your values,
Okay.
creating a harmony in between your actions and your core principles.
But wouldn't Aristotle say that those good feelings are more like a bonus, not the main goal?
Yeah.
You shouldn't chase the feeling itself, right?
That's where Aristotle gets really interesting.
Okay.
He actually cautions against chasing pleasure as an ultimate goal.
So,
Think of it this way.
okay,
Imagine focusing only on the icing of a cake.
I like where this is going.
You'd miss out on the substance, the nourishment, the entire point of the cake itself. That's how Aristotle views the pursuit of pleasure for pleasure's sake.
So you're saying that pleasure is like the icing on the cake of a virtuous life. It's a delightful addition, but not the cake itself.
I love that analogy.
You can't build a fulfilling life on icing alone.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
Okay?
Pleasure is a natural byproduct of living. Well,
Okay.
not the definition of it.
Okay. I'm starting to understand how Aristotle views pleasure.
Good.
But I'm curious. In Book X,
Yes,
Aristotle revisits pleasure.
he does.
And this time he emphasizes the importance of intellectual pleasures.
Right.
What's the significance of that?
This is where we see Aristotle, the philosopher, shine.
Okay.
He proposes that the highest form of pleasure comes from exercising our minds.
So instead of binge-watching reality TV, I should be digging into thought-provoking documentaries.
You got it.
Okay.
Think about the joy of deep thought,
Yeah.
of grappling with complex ideas,
Okay.
or losing yourself in a challenging book.
Right.
For Aristotle, those are the activities that lead to true fulfillment.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But seriously, why does Aristotle place such a high value on intellectual pursuits?
Remember, for Aristotle, humans are fundamentally rational beings.
Okay.
It's in our nature to use our minds, to stretch our intellectual capabilities.
So it's not just about accumulating knowledge. It's about using our intelligence to live a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. Now, you might be wondering how all of this connects to Aristotle's views on politics, right?
You're totally reading my mind.
Yeah.
Up until now,
Yeah.
we've been talking about individual happiness and virtue.
Right.
But Aristotle is famous for his work on politics, too.
Yes, he is.
How do those two pieces fit together?
And that's the beauty of Aristotle's philosophy. It's all connected.
Yeah.
He sees ethics and politics as intricately intertwined.
Okay.
For Aristotle, the state, the community, plays a critical role
Yeah.
in creating a world where individuals can truly flourish.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's not enough for me to simply focus on being a good person.
Well,
The government has a role to play in this whole good life equation.
that's a great observation.
Okay.
And a key insight into Aristotle's thinking.
Okay.
He believed that the purpose of government wasn't simply to maintain order
Right.
or protect its citizens from harm.
Okay.
It had a much higher calling to create conditions where its citizens could not just survive, but thrive,
Yeah.
to cultivate virtue,
Okay.
encourage wisdom, and provide opportunities for everyone to reach their full potential.
So instead of just handing out the icing, Aristotle thinks the government to be responsible for baking the entire cake,
Yeah.
creating the very foundation for a good life.
You've got it. Aristotle saw the government as responsible for building the structures that support a virtuous and flourishing life for all citizens.
That makes sense. But it also raises a question.
Okay.
If the government is busy baking this metaphorical cake,
Right.
what about our individual responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
What role do we play in all of this?
That's where Aristotle's concept of active citizenship comes in.
Okay.
He believed that participating in the political life of our community is more than just a right.
Okay.
It's a duty. It's how we contribute to building that just and virtuous society we've been talking about.
So are you saying that voting, debating issues, getting involved in local politics,
All of that,
all of that actually makes us better people?
according to Aristotle, absolutely.
Wow.
He saw those activities as opportunities to sharpen our moral reasoning, develop practical wisdom, and connect with something larger than ourselves. Get the common good.
So the government sets the stage for a good life.
Right.
And we as citizens have a responsibility to actively participate in shaping that stage.
Exactly. And remember, for Aristotle, this active participation isn't just a chore or an obligation.
Right.
It's a source of pleasure and fulfillment in itself. It connects us to something bigger than ourselves and allows us to contribute to the well-being of our community.
This is honestly giving me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So far, we've covered pleasure politics, and now this idea of active citizenship.
Yeah, it's all
It sounds like Aristotle saw them all as essential ingredients for a good life.
And remember, this is all in service of achieving eudaimonia,
Right.
that flourishing life that Aristotle considered the ultimate goal.
Eudaimonia, we've come full circle.
We have.
Now, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I'm ready to dive even deeper into this idea of active citizenship.
All right.
What does it look like in practice?
Yeah.
And how can we apply Aristotle's ideas to our modern world?
That's the question
That is the
that
question.
we're all wondering.
Yeah. I'm really fascinated by this idea of active citizenship.
Yeah.
It sounds great in theory,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a lot of people today
Yeah.
feel disconnected from politics.
Right.
Like their voice doesn't really matter. You know?
I can understand that sentiment.
Yeah.
For many, the political landscape feels overwhelming and sometimes even disillusioning.
Yeah.
But I think Aristotle offers a different perspective on political participation.
Okay.
For him, it wasn't simply about casting a vote or contacting your representative.
Right.
It was about engaging in thoughtful deliberation,
Okay.
weighing different perspectives,
Uh-huh.
and actively working together to find solutions that benefit the common good.
So it's less about shouting your opinion on social media
Right.
and more about actually listening to other people's viewpoints.
Exactly.
Maybe even trying to find some common ground.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
Remember those intellectual virtues we discussed earlier?
Uh-huh.
Critical thinking, open-mindedness,
Right.
the ability to engage in reasoned debate.
Yeah.
Those are the skills Aristotle believed were essential for active citizenship.
So,
It's about cultivating those virtues within ourselves and encouraging them in others.
okay, so being an active citizen requires us to flex our intellectual muscles.
Yes.
But does Aristotle really think that engaging in politics actually makes us better people?
He absolutely did.
Really?
He saw it as a way to practice and strengthen our virtues,
Okay.
to hone our practical wisdom, and to become more well-rounded individuals.
Okay.
It's about moving beyond our own self-interest
Right.
and considering the needs of the community as a whole.
I could see how that could be a powerful force for personal growth.
Yeah.
Well, let's face it.
Yeah.
Politics can be messy and frustrating.
It can be.
How do we stay engaged
That's the question.
without getting burned out or cynical?
That's such an important question.
Yeah.
And one I think Aristotle would have appreciated. He understood that the pursuit of the good life is an ongoing process and one that's full of challenges.
Right.
It's not about reaching some perfect end state,
Okay.
but about constantly striving, learning, and adapting along the way.
So
It's a journey worth taking.
you're saying that being an active citizen requires perseverance.
Exactly.
We have to stay committed to the process even when things get tough.
Exactly. It's easy to become disillusioned or apathetic.
Right.
I think Aristotle would remind us to remember why we're engaging in the first place.
Okay.
It's not for personal gain or power,
Right.
but to contribute to a society where everyone has the opportunity to flourish.
Yeah.
If we keep that ultimate goal in mind,
Okay.
the challenges might feel less daunting.
That's a helpful way to frame it.
Yeah.
But let's be honest.
Right.
Not everyone will agree with Aristotle's vision of the good life.
Of course not.
What about people who prioritize different values?
Sure.
Or who simply aren't interested in politics?
Yeah.
How would he approach those differences?
That's where Aristotle's emphasis on dialogue and deliberation comes in.
Okay.
He recognized that a truly healthy society requires a diversity of viewpoints and perspectives.
Right.
It's not about demanding that everyone agree on everything,
Right.
but about creating a space where we can respectfully engage with each other's ideas and work towards solutions that benefit the common good, even if we disagree on some specifics.
So even if we don't see eye to eye on every issue, we can at least find value in having these conversations.
Yeah.
And working together to find common ground.
Precisely. And I think that's where Aristotle's ideas are incredibly relevant today.
Yeah.
In a world that often feels divided and polarized.
Yes.
His focus on reasoned discourse, open-mindedness, and a shared commitment to the common good offers a powerful antidote.
I love that. An antidote to division.
Yeah.
That's a powerful image. But I have to ask, how realist is all of this?
That's a good question.
Can we really create a society where everyone has the opportunity to flourish?
Right.
Or is that just wishful thinking?
It's certainly an ambitious goal.
Yeah.
And one that requires constant effort and vigilance.
Okay.
Aristotle acknowledged that achieving such a society wouldn't be easy.
Right.
He wasn't naive about the challenges of human nature and the complexities of social and political life.
Right.
But I think he would argue that it's a goal worth thriving for, even if we don't achieve perfect results.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Yes.
It's about recognizing that we have a shared responsibility to create the conditions where everyone can thrive.
And remembering that requires ongoing dialogue, collaboration, and a commitment to the common good.
Yeah.
We have to actively work to build that kind of society.
Now, going back to something we talked about earlier, I'm still grappling with this idea of pleasure being a byproduct of a virtuous life. Does that mean we should never prioritize our own enjoyment?
Right.
Or pursue things we simply find pleasurable?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make life a little, well, boring?
That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
And it's a question that I think Aristotle would have encouraged us to explore deeply.
Okay.
Remember, he believed that there's a hierarchy of pleasures, some more conducive to living a good life than others.
Right.
We don't have to deny ourselves pleasure, but we should be mindful of the types of pleasure we choose to prioritize.
So it's not about denying ourselves pleasure altogether, but about being more intentional about the sources of our pleasure.
Exactly.
Like, how does a particular pleasure fit into the bigger picture of our lives?
Yes.
And the kind of person we want to be.
Exactly. If we constantly chase fleeting or superficial pleasures, we might miss out on the deeper, more lasting satisfaction that comes from aligning our actions with our values.
Okay.
That's where the real joy lies.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how can we determine which pleasures are good and which are bad?
Right.
Did Aristotle leave us a rule book or something?
I wish it were that simple.
Oh,
Aristotle didn't give us a specific set of rules,
Right.
but he did offer some guiding principles.
Okay.
Remember, he believed that true pleasure comes from activities that align with our nature as rational beings.
Okay.
Think of things like learning, creating, connecting with others, doing meaningful work.
Okay.
Those are all activities that are likely to lead to genuine and lasting pleasure.
So it's about finding activities that challenge us intellectually, creatively, and socially.
Yes.
Things that make us feel truly alive and engaged.
You got it. And those are the types of pleasures that tend to be the most sustainable and fulfilling. In the long run, they nourish our minds and our souls, leaving us with a sense of satisfaction that goes beyond a fleeting moment of enjoyment.
This is all so fascinating, starting to think that Aristotle's vision of the good life requires a lot of self-reflection and honesty.
It does.
We need to really examine our motivations
Yeah.
and ask ourselves some tough questions.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
We need to ask ourselves, what truly brings me joy?
Yeah.
What activities make me feel alive and fulfilled?
Right.
And how do those pleasures align with my values and my vision of a good life? It's a journey of self-discovery.
It sounds like Aristotle is encouraging us to take ownership of our own happiness and fulfillment.
He is.
It's not something that just happens to us.
No.
It's something we actively cultivate through our choices and actions.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And it's not about beating ourselves up if we make mistakes.
Yeah.
Or indulge in less than ideal pleasures from time to time.
Right.
It's about being mindful and making conscious choices that align with our values and goals.
This conversation has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
It seems like Aristotle is advocating for a life of intentionality and purpose,
Yes.
where pleasure and happiness are not the goals themselves,
Right.
but rather the natural byproducts of living a virtuous and engaged life.
Exactly. He believed that the pursuit of the good life is a continuous process of reflection, deliberation, and action.
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers, but about consistently asking the right questions and striving to live by our highest ideas.
This has been incredibly enlightening.
Yeah.
But I think we've given our listeners a lot to digest.
We have.
What do you say we take a moment to let all this sink in?
Sounds good.
When we come back,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics
Okay.
and see if we can distill some practical advice for those of us trying to apply these ideas in our modern world.
I like it.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Good to go back.
We've covered a lot of ground
We have.
in our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics.
Yeah, lots to think about.
From virtue and pleasure to the surprisingly relevant role of politics.
Right.
It's amazing how Aristotle's ideas,
Yeah.
written thousands of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
still resonate so deeply with the challenges
I know. It's incredible.
we face today.
It really is.
So before we wrap things up,
Okay.
let's try to distill Aristotle's vision of the good life
Okay.
into a few key takeaways for our listeners.
Yeah.
Where should someone even begin
Right.
if they want to apply these ideas to their own lives?
First and foremost, remember that Aristotle's ultimate goal
Yeah.
is eudaimonia.
Yeah.
That state of flourishing, of
Yeah.
truly living well.
Right.
And remember, for Aristotle, this isn't a passive state
Yeah.
of just feeling happy.
Right.
It's an active pursuit,
Okay.
one that requires effort, engagement,
Yeah.
and constant reflection.
It makes you think about how we often talk about wanting to find happiness.
I know.
But for Aristotle,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's more about creating the conditions
Mm-hmm.
for happiness to emerge.
Yeah.
Almost like tending a garden.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating those inner virtues we've discussed.
Yeah.
Courage, justice, wisdom, temperance.
Yeah.
These aren't just lofty ideals. They're the qualities that allow us to live in accordance with our best selves,
Yeah.
make sound choices,
Yeah.
and contribute to the well-being of those around us.
And we can't forget about the social aspect. It's not enough to just focus on our own individual virtue, right?
Right.
Aristotle sees a critical role
Mhm.
for active citizenship
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and building a society
Yeah.
where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. For those listening, think about it this way.
Okay.
You're not just an isolated individual striving for personal happiness.
Right.
You're part of a larger ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the health of that ecosystem depends on the active participation of all its members.
Wow.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness
Yeah.
and working together to create a community where everyone has the opportunity to flourish.
So we got the virtues,
Okay.
the importance of community and political engagement.
Mm-hmm.
But what about pleasure?
Right.
It feels almost counterintuitive.
Yeah,
But Aristotle doesn't tell us to reject pleasure entirely.
that's right.
Okay.
Aristotle recognizes that pleasure is a natural and important part of the human experience.
Okay.
It's not something to be feared or demonized,
Right.
but he does encourage us to be mindful of
Right.
the types of pleasures we pursue
Yeah.
and how they fit into the overall tapestry of our lives.
So it's not about living a life devoid of pleasure,
No,
but about being discerning,
exactly.
choosing those pleasures that align with our values
Mm,
and contribute to our overall well-being,
right.
rather than constantly chasing fleeting distractions.
Exactly. Imagine the deep satisfaction of pursuing a challenging goal
Right?
and finally achieving it.
Yeah.
or the simple joy of spending quality time with loved ones.
Right.
Free from distractions.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of pleasures that nourish our souls
Okay.
and leave us feeling truly fulfilled.
It's so easy to get caught up in the instant gratification of the modern
I
world,
know it is.
but Aristotle reminds us that true fulfillment comes from pursuing activities that are in line with our nature
Yes.
as rational social beings.
I think that's one of the most powerful takeaways from the Nicomachean Ethics.
Yeah.
It's a call to live a life of intentionality,
Okay.
to choose our actions carefully, and to cultivate those habits and practices that lead to true and lasting happiness.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's both inspiring and a little daunting
Right.
to consider the high bar
Yeah.
Aristotle sets for living a good life.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of it. He's not giving us a rigid set of rules to follow,
Right.
but rather a framework for ongoing reflection and growth.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to constantly challenge ourselves,
Okay.
to strive for excellence in all areas of our lives,
Mhm.
and to contribute to a world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
So it's not about achieving perfection,
No.
but about embracing the journey of becoming better versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
And hopefully in doing so, we inspire others to do the same.
Exactly. It's a beautiful and ongoing process of self-discovery, growth, and contribution. And
Yeah.
I think that's a message worth sharing with the world.
Well said.
Thank you.
And on that note,
Yeah.
I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive
Okay.
into Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics.
It's been fun.
It's been an incredibly rewarding journey.
It has been.
We've explored the nature of virtue,
They
the
have.
importance of pleasure in politics,
Mm-hmm.
and the power of active citizenship.
Absolutely.
And hoping our listeners feel equipped
Yeah.
to take these ideas out into the world
Mm-hmm.
and apply them in their own unique ways.
That would be great.
Absolutely. And as Aristotle reminds us,
Yeah.
the pursuit of the good life
Mm-hmm.
is a journey we embark on together.
Yes.
We can learn from each other,
You can-
support each other,
Yeah.
and collectively work towards building a world
Right.
where everyone has the opportunity to flourish.
That's a fantastic point to end on.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
of course.
We hope it has provided you with some food for thought
Yeah.
and inspired you to continue reflecting on your own path to a truly fulfilling life. Until next time,
Yeah.
keep seeking, keep growing, and keep striving to live a life worthy of your full potential.
Well said.
Thanks.